The relationship between Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce has once again captured global attention, not because of controversy, scandal, or dramatic declarations, but precisely because of how quietly it is being lived. In an era where celebrity romances are often amplified through social media exposure and constant public validation, their love story stands out for doing the opposite. Subtle, controlled, and strikingly low profile, the connection between the global pop icon and the NFL superstar has unexpectedly become one of the most talked about romances today. From the moment Taylor Swift's name was first linked to Travis Kelce, public expectations were sky-high. Swift is one of the most influential musicians in the world, with a fan base that analyzes every lyric, appearance, and gesture. Kelce, meanwhile, is a dominant force in professional American football, widely respected for his talent, discipline, and charisma. When two figures of this magnitude cross paths, the natural assumption is media overload. Instead, what followed was restraint. Rather than confirming their relationship through official statements or curated social media posts, both Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce allowed the public to notice them gradually. A brief appearance in the stadium stands, a shared smile after a game, casual moments that felt unpolished and unscripted. These fragments, captured by cameras and observers, became the foundation of growing public curiosity. Ironically, the lack of explanation only intensified interest. Pop culture analysts note that this approach feels refreshing in today's attention-driven landscape. While many public figures turn personal relationships into digital content, Swift and Kelce appear to be drawing a clear boundary between private life and public image. This decision has shifted the narrative surrounding their romance, framing it not as spectacle, but as something grounded and intentional. The result is a story that feels more mature and more believable. The shift is particularly noticeable for Taylor Swift. Throughout her career, her romantic life has often been placed under a microscope, frequently connected to songwriting themes and album concepts. Past relationships became material for speculation, decoding, and endless discussion. This time, however, that familiar pattern is largely absent. There are no obvious clues embedded in lyrics, no symbolic gestures for fans to dissect. Swift appears calmer, more self-contained, and notably protective of her personal space. Travis Kelce mirrors that same energy. In the few moments when he has addressed Taylor Swift publicly, his tone has remained respectful and understated. He does not lean into sensational headlines or exploit the relationship for publicity. Instead, he speaks with ease and confidence, giving the impression of someone secure both in his career and in his role as a partner. This balance has further strengthened public perception of their relationship as healthy and genuine. As weeks passed, a consistent pattern began to emerge. There were no reports of turbulence, no rumors of breakups or reconciliations, and no reactive public statements. The relationship appeared steady, moving at its own pace. For many fans, this consistency became the most romantic element of all. In a culture conditioned to expect chaos, stability suddenly felt rare and deeply appealing. Sources close to the couple suggest that their compatibility lies not in similarity, but in contrast. Taylor Swift operates in a world driven by emotion, storytelling, and creative expression. Travis Kelce comes from a system rooted in structure, discipline, and teamwork. These differences, rather than creating distance, are believed to provide balance. Each brings a different rhythm, grounding the other in ways that feel complementary rather than conflicting. Despite increasing media coverage and global attention, neither Swift nor Kelce has shifted their approach. They continue to maintain clear boundaries, choosing when to appear together and when to remain private. This consistency has elevated their story beyond celebrity gossip, turning it into a broader conversation about modern relationships under pressure. Many observers now view their romance as an example of how intimacy can survive, even thrive, under intense public scrutiny. For fans, the emotional response goes beyond admiration. There is a sense of relatability that resonates deeply. The idea of being loved quietly, supported without spectacle, and valued without constant proof strikes a chord with many. The relationship between Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce has become less about fame and more about feeling, about the kind of connection people hope to find in their own lives. The peak of public fascination with this relationship did not arrive through a single dramatic moment. Instead, it was built slowly through repeated, understated actions. Taylor Swift consistently showing up to support Kelce from the sidelines. Kelce maintaining a protective yet non-possessive presence. Together, these moments created a sense of emotional payoff, proof that romance does not need grand gestures to feel real. Ultimately, the story of Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce serves as a reminder that in an industry driven by noise, quietness can be powerful. Without controversy, without excessive exposure, and without performative intimacy, their relationship continues to grow in public interest. Not because it demands attention, but because it never asks for it. And perhaps that is exactly why it feels so compelling. As public interest continues to grow, the dynamic between Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce has also begun to influence how celebrity relationships are discussed in mainstream media. Rather than focusing on speculation or sensational angles, many outlets have shifted toward examining the broader cultural meaning behind their low-profile approach. Analysts point out that this relationship arrives at a moment when audiences are experiencing fatigue from overexposed romances, public breakups, and carefully staged displays of affection. In that context, the calm surrounding Swift and Kelce feels almost radical. What further fuels attention is the way both individuals remain firmly anchored in their respective careers. Taylor Swift continues to dominate the global music industry, breaking records with tours, album releases, and chart performances, while Travis Kelce stays locked into the rhythm of professional football, maintaining peak performance on the field. Neither appears to slow down or reshape their professional identity because of the relationship. Instead, the romance exists alongside their ambitions, not in front of them. This balance reinforces the impression that their connection is built on mutual respect rather than dependency. Observers also note how carefully the couple manages public appearances. When they are seen together, the moments feel intentional but not staged. There is no sense of obligation to prove anything. A brief interaction is allowed to remain brief. A shared laugh does not become a headline-driven event. This restraint has had an unexpected effect. It has turned even the smallest gesture into something meaningful. In media psychology, scarcity increases perceived value, and in this case, limited visibility has amplified emotional impact. Fans, particularly those who have followed Taylor Swift's personal journey for years, often describe this chapter as different. Not louder, not more dramatic, but more grounded. Online discussions increasingly frame the relationship as a sign of emotional growth rather than a new storyline to decode. The absence of public conflict, vague messaging, or cryptic symbolism has shifted fan engagement from analysis to observation. People are no longer trying to solve a puzzle. They are simply watching something unfold naturally. Travis Kelce's role in this perception is especially significant. As an athlete accustomed to pressure, scrutiny, and performance-based evaluation, his composure under public attention appears to translate seamlessly into his personal life. He neither withdraws completely nor overshares. This middle ground has earned him praise from fans who see his behavior as emotionally intelligent. In interviews, his relaxed demeanor when Taylor Swift's name comes up contrasts sharply with the tension often displayed by public figures navigating high-profile relationships. Industry insiders suggest that this stability is not accidental. Both Swift and Kelce are at stages in their lives where priorities have shifted. There is less urgency to define a relationship publicly and more focus on preserving what works privately. This maturity is reflected not only in how they interact with the media, but also in how they allow silence to exist without explanation. In a culture that equates visibility with validation, silence becomes a statement in itself. As the narrative evolves, it becomes increasingly clear that the fascination surrounding this relationship is rooted in emotional resonance rather than novelty. The story does not rely on surprise twists or dramatic revelations. Its strength lies in repetition, consistent support, mutual presence, and the absence of chaos. Each time expectations of spectacle go unmet, the relationship gains credibility. And credibility, in the long run, holds more power than hype. The public response also highlights a shift in audience values. Many fans express admiration not just for the couple, but for what the relationship represents. There is a growing appreciation for emotional privacy, for partnerships that are lived rather than performed. In this sense, Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce are no longer just two celebrities dating. They have become symbols of a quieter, more intentional form of romance that resonates across generations. As long as the relationship continues on this path, it is likely to remain a subject of conversation, not because of controversy, but because of contrast. In a world where love is often amplified to the point of distortion, their story feels refreshingly undistorted. And that, more than any headline or viral moment, is what keeps people watching. That sense of contrast continues to deepen as time goes on. The longer Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce maintain their low-key dynamic, the more it stands out against the backdrop of celebrity culture that thrives on constant exposure. Media observers note that this relationship has managed to dominate conversation without ever trying to control the narrative. There are no strategic leaks, no carefully timed confirmations, and no attempts to steer public opinion. Instead, the story grows organically, driven by observation rather than announcement. This organic growth has had a ripple effect across fan communities. Online discussions increasingly focus less on speculation and more on interpretation of values. Fans talk about trust, emotional safety, and balance, concepts rarely associated with celebrity romances at this scale. For many, seeing Taylor Swift appear relaxed, unguarded, and consistently supportive from the sidelines signals a version of happiness that feels earned rather than performed. It suggests a relationship that provides stability instead of inspiration for art born from heartbreak. At the same time, Travis Kelce's continued professionalism reinforces this perception. On the field, his focus remains sharp. Off the field, his behavior stays measured. There is no visible shift toward attention-seeking, no sudden rebranding tied to his personal life. This consistency strengthens the idea that the relationship enhances rather than distracts from who he already is. In media narratives, this balance is often cited as evidence that the relationship operates on equal footing, with neither partner overshadowing the other. As coverage expands, journalists and commentators have begun framing the relationship as a case study in modern celebrity intimacy. In previous decades, public figures often relied on mystery created by limited media access. Today, mystery is difficult to maintain by choice. Yet Swift and Kelce demonstrate that intentional privacy can still exist, even under constant digital surveillance. Their approach challenges the assumption that relevance requires transparency, proving instead that restraint can generate just as much, if not more, engagement. The timing of this relationship also plays a crucial role in its reception. Both individuals have already reached the peak of their respective industries. Taylor Swift is no longer chasing validation. She is defining legacy. Travis Kelce, similarly, has established himself as one of the most respected names in professional football. With less pressure to prove themselves, there is more room to prioritize emotional alignment. This shared stage of life may explain the calm that defines their interactions. Another factor fueling sustained interest is the absence of narrative conflict. Traditional celebrity coverage thrives on tension, misunderstandings, distance, competing schedules, or public missteps. In this case, none of those elements have materialized in a meaningful way. Instead, the story progresses quietly, almost stubbornly refusing to escalate. Ironically, this refusal becomes its own form of tension. Audiences keep watching not to see what goes wrong, but to see whether something so steady can truly last under scrutiny. From a cultural perspective, the relationship also reflects a broader shift in how romance is perceived by younger audiences. Many fans express fatigue with highly dramatized love stories and public emotional volatility. What resonates now is emotional regulation, mutual respect, and clear boundaries. Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce embody these traits in a way that feels accessible, even aspirational. Their relationship does not suggest perfection, but it suggests intention, and that distinction matters. As the months pass, the lack of dramatic milestones continues to redefine expectations. There is no rush toward declarations, no pressure to reach symbolic checkpoints for public approval. Each appearance together feels optional, not obligatory. This reinforces the idea that the relationship exists independently of audience reaction. In a media environment where feedback loops often dictate behavior, this independence feels both rare and powerful. Ultimately, the ongoing fascination with Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce is not rooted in curiosity about their future plans, but in admiration for their present choices. The story resonates because it feels honest in its restraint. It suggests that love does not need constant narration to be real, and that privacy, when chosen deliberately, can coexist with public life. As long as that balance remains intact, the relationship will continue to captivate, not through spectacle, but through quiet consistency. That quiet consistency has now become the defining feature of the Taylor Swift-Travis Kelce narrative, and it continues to reshape how the public interprets their relationship. Each new appearance, no matter how brief, is received not as confirmation of romance, but as validation of a pattern that has already been established. There is no sense of escalation, only continuity. And in today's media ecosystem, continuity itself is compelling. What makes this dynamic even more notable is how little it relies on external validation. There are no public anniversaries marked with statements, no orchestrated moments designed to trend. Instead, the relationship exists in parallel with their lives, not as the centerpiece. Taylor Swift remains focused on her music, her performances, and her long-term artistic legacy. Travis Kelce remains focused on competition, teamwork, and professional excellence. The relationship does not interrupt these paths. It simply runs alongside them. This parallel existence has led many commentators to describe the romance as invisible but present. It is felt more than it is seen. When Swift is spotted supporting Kelce, the gesture feels intentional but never performative. When Kelce references Swift, it is done with ease rather than emphasis. The lack of exaggeration keeps the emotional temperature steady, avoiding the highs and lows that often define public relationships. As a result, the story feels sustainable. Media analysts argue that sustainability may be the most underrated quality in celebrity relationships. Public attention is relentless, and without a stable foundation, many romances collapse under the weight of expectation. In this case, Swift and Kelce appear to have removed expectation from the equation altogether. By never promising access, they never risk disappointing it. This strategy, whether intentional or instinctive, has allowed them to maintain control over their narrative without actively managing it. The public response reflects this shift. Instead of demanding updates, fans have settled into observation mode. There is less urgency, less pressure, and more patience. Online conversations often center on admiration rather than speculation. People are not asking what comes next. They are appreciating what already exists. This tone is unusual for a relationship involving two global figures, and it signals a broader change in audience behavior. Another element adding depth to the story is the way both individuals handle separation due to professional commitments. With demanding schedules that frequently place them in different cities, there is ample opportunity for tension or misinterpretation. Yet no such narrative has emerged. The absence of concern over distance suggests a level of trust that does not require reassurance through public gestures. Again, silence becomes meaningful. Culturally, this relationship arrives at a moment when privacy is being redefined. For years, privacy was associated with secrecy or avoidance. Now, it is increasingly viewed as a form of self-respect. Taylor Swift, in particular, has been vocal in the past about reclaiming control over her life and work. This relationship appears to reflect the outcome of that evolution, not as a statement but as a practice. The decision to protect something valuable rather than display it aligns with that broader personal narrative. Travis Kelce's approach complements this perfectly. His confidence does not manifest as dominance or visibility, but as steadiness. He does not need to assert the relationship publicly to affirm it privately. This restraint challenges outdated assumptions about masculinity in high-profile sports figures, offering a quieter model of partnership that resonates with modern audiences. As time continues, the relationship has also begun to influence how other celebrity couples are perceived. Comparisons are inevitable. Where once excess exposure was normalized, it now feels exhausting by contrast. Swift and Kelce have unintentionally set a new benchmark, not through intention, but through example. Their story suggests that relevance does not require constant presence, and that emotional depth does not need amplification. The long-term impact of this narrative remains to be seen, but its current resonance is undeniable. It has shifted conversations away from gossip and toward values, away from spectacle and toward substance. And perhaps most importantly, it has reminded audiences that romance does not lose its power when it becomes quiet. In many ways, it gains it.as the public continues to watch from a distance. One thing remains clear. The fascination with Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce is not driven by anticipation of drama, but by respect for restraint. Their relationship has become a rare example of how two public figures can remain fully visible in their careers while keeping their connection grounded, protected, and intentionally understated. And in a world that rarely slows down, that choice continues to speak louder than any headline. As this narrative continues to unfold, what becomes increasingly apparent is that the relationship between Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce has entered a phase of quiet normalization. It is no longer framed as a novelty or an unexpected crossover between music and sports, but as a steady presence that exists without demanding constant reevaluation. This normalization, paradoxically, is what keeps the public engaged. When something extraordinary refuses to behave extraordinarily, it challenges expectations, and that tension sustains attention. Industry observers note that this kind of sustained interest without escalation is rare. Typically, celebrity relationships move through predictable cycles: revelation, saturation, backlash, and eventual decline. In this case, the cycle appears disrupted. There was no formal revelation, saturation has been limited by choice, and backlash has been virtually non-existent. As a result, the story never peaks in the traditional sense. It simply continues, accumulating meaning over time rather than burning out quickly. Part of this endurance lies in how both Swift and Kelce manage emotional signaling. There is no performative intimacy, no exaggerated body language designed to communicate romance to an audience. Instead, what appears publicly is subtle and restrained, comfort rather than chemistry for show. Media psychologists argue that this signals emotional security. When affection does not need to be proven, it can remain understated. This perception has resonated strongly with audiences who are increasingly skeptical of curated authenticity. Taylor Swift's personal evolution plays a significant role here. Over the years, she has transitioned from being a subject of constant narrative framing to an architect of her own boundaries. Earlier in her career, silence was often interpreted as avoidance or vulnerability. Now, silence is understood as control. This relationship seems to benefit from that shift. Swift no longer appears reactive to external commentary, and that composure sets the tone for how the relationship is discussed publicly. Travis Kelce, similarly, has embraced a version of public life that prioritizes focus over frenzy. Despite the added attention that comes with being linked to one of the most famous artists in the world, his public persona remains consistent. There is no visible attempt to capitalize on the relationship for branding or expanded visibility beyond his existing sphere. This consistency reinforces the idea that the relationship is additive, not transformative, to his identity. As coverage continues, the language surrounding the relationship has subtly changed. Headlines increasingly emphasize stability, maturity, and mutual respect rather than intrigue or speculation. This shift reflects a broader media recalibration. When drama fails to materialize, narrative frameworks must adapt. In this case, the story has become less about what might happen and more about what is happening quietly and reliably. Public engagement mirrors this recalibration. Fans are no longer reacting with urgency but with reassurance. There is a sense of collective calm surrounding the relationship, a shared understanding that not everything needs to be dissected in real time. This collective restraint is unusual in fan culture, particularly at this scale, and suggests that audiences are responding not just to the individuals involved, but to the emotional tone they set. Another layer of intrigue lies in how the relationship navigates absence. With demanding schedules that often place Swift on international stages and Kelce in rigorous training cycles, physical distance is inevitable. Yet distance has not become a narrative focal point. There are no stories of strain or compromise, no public acknowledgments of difficulty. This absence of struggle narratives further reinforces the impression of trust and independence, two qualities that are rarely dramatized but deeply valued. From a sociocultural perspective, the relationship aligns with shifting definitions of success in both love and life. Where once success was measured by visibility and affirmation, it is increasingly associated with balance and sustainability. Swift and Kelce appear to embody this shift. Their relationship does not compete with their ambitions. It coexists with them. This coexistence is perhaps the most compelling aspect of the story. As time progresses, the lack of definitive milestones continues to defy expectation. There are no public timelines, no symbolic gestures staged for consumption. Each phase unfolds without announcement, allowing the relationship to remain fluid rather than fixed in public perception. This fluidity prevents stagnation and keeps the narrative open-ended without resorting to suspense tactics. Ultimately, the enduring fascination with Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce is rooted in a simple contradiction: a relationship that is both highly visible and deliberately private. That balance creates a space where curiosity is satisfied without being exploited. The story does not ask to be followed, yet it is. Not because it promises spectacle, but because it offers something increasingly rare: calm, consistency, and emotional clarity in the middle of a very loud world. As long as that clarity remains intact, the relationship